G'day guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are here to preview round 6. Of course, Gather Round has just completed, and what a round it was. But now we move to more regular scheduled programming, I would say. Games back at the normal venues, and we do start with one of the big games of the year, round 6. Easter Thursday clash, the traditional game between the Lions and Collingwood. What a matchup this is. Both teams in really good form in the win-loss record at the moment. The Lions undefeated. Collingwood still have that one loss against the Giants. A massive contest, and me and my brother are both tipped differently in this one. Now, he has gone the Brisbane Lions. He has said with the home ground advantage, they may get off to a slow start, but coming home with a house on fire. No margin is big enough at the moment to worry them. Forward line is dominating, and the midfield is doing just the same. Now, I'm actually going to be going Collingwood here, but I want to just cover my brother's points on Brisbane so far. They are my premiership favourites at the moment. It's only a couple of rounds in, you would say. It's not even a quarter of the season 3 yet, but the Lions, they, like he says, no margin is too much for them. Come back against the Bulldogs last week from absolutely nowhere in a venue where they haven't played too often, and really put the Bulldogs to the sword in that second half. And they've done that a few times already this season, so if they can continue that sort of stuff, then I think they're going to be really hard to beat. However, a couple of the reasons why I think Collingwood are going to win this game is, one, I feel like Brisbane have to lose a game. Now, I think Collingwood are a team that can stand with them in the midfield. I don't think Brisbane are necessarily going to tag Nick Dacos. And we saw last week how good he was against Jordan, being able to shake off that tag pretty easily and was their best player on the ground. It was arguably one of his best games of his career, in my opinion, Nick Dacos. I think their forward line can stand up here. There has to be a point where Brisbane's forward line doesn't have a good game. Eric Hipwood really had to lift in that second half to get his team over the line, and I really don't see the consistency of Eric Hipwood continuing, so that's why I'm going Collingwood. I think they can match it in the midfield. Their defence, I think, is a little bit shaky for Collingwood, but I think they can hold up, and their forward line has been pretty underrated so far this year, so that's hence why I'm going with the Pies. After that, a massive contest between Adelaide and the Giants at Adelaide Oval. Big contest for both sides. Crows have dropped off the last couple of weeks. The Giants regaining their form after their loss to Hawthorn a couple of weeks ago. Now, my brother, he has tipped the Crows. He has said their response should come from their midfield, and with their tall forward line, he thinks that at least one of them should be able to get on top of the Giants in defence, and this is where I kind of differ from it. I actually think the Giants line up very well against Adelaide. This is at Adelaide Oval. If this was at Sydney, I'd be tipping the Giants 100%. It was a bit 50-50 at first, but the one issue that I have with the Crows at the moment is their defence. And with players like Jesse Hogan up there with great form at the moment, Toby Green is in great form at the moment, is in that All-Australian form that he had a couple of years ago, and I think that the Crows' defence simply can't hold up here. It's been exposed the last couple of weeks, the Crows' attack. If they can't find enough avenues to goal, then they struggle to score. They did have a good first half against the Cats, but again, once they couldn't find those avenues to goal, even against the Cats' defence that was lost a couple of players through injury, the Crows still weren't able to penetrate, and this is where I think the Giants are going to stand up. They line up very nicely. Sam Taylor, Connor Iden, Jack Buckley, and they may even have to bring in another taller defender if they need to. You've got Lee Kalir in the reserves, who's playing quite well at the moment. So I think the Giants stand up really nicely here. And they don't really have a bad record at Adelaide Oval, so hence why I'm going with Giants in this one. Sunday evening, Bulldogs v St Kilda, a very interesting contest this one. Both teams have probably done a little bit more than what most pundits were expecting at the start of the year. The Bulldogs are only 2-3, but they have been in basically every game so far this year. Did drop off in that second half against the Brisbane Lions, which I don't think Luke Beveridge would have really liked. I think that they should have held on to that game. You shouldn't be up by that much at some point in games and then go on to lose it. And St Kilda really got a wake-up call last week against the Giants. A little bit of overhype on them, I would say, and maybe they believed it a little bit, I don't know, but the flattering scoreline at the end from the Giants doesn't show the story. The Giants dominated that game basically from the second quarter onwards, and the St Kilda do have some question marks. Now, my brother has gone the Western Bulldogs in this game. He says that they're more experienced in the midfield, could see the return of Marcus Bontempelli, and he can't see the St Kilda kicking a score. However, I'm looking on the side of the Saints that they had a really down week. I think that there's going to be a little bit of talking points on them saying that they're not good enough. I think they were brought down to earth a little bit. Jack McRae was locked down, and I think he's a very important player to them. So Bulldogs, interested to see if they will go to him. I think the running game of the Saints will catch the Bulldogs off guard, and it is under the roof as well where St Kilda thrive. So that's why I'm going St Kilda. But I think this is actually going to be a really underrated game going into round 6. And the final game of the round, of course, Easter Monday, traditional clash, Geelong v Hawthorn. Both teams are at the peak of their powers. because this is like the mid-2010s to early 2010s, even the late 2000s. Contest sets up for one of the biggest in at least the last 5 years or so. Both teams in really good form. Hawthorn had a shock loss last week to Port Adelaide. Geelong coming out of the clouds against Adelaide to steal that one in the end and really just run over the top of them. True 50-50 game. Same as what my brother has said. He said could go either way, but he does see that the Hawks don't really have a matchup for Dangerfield, and he has turned back the clock playing up forward. So he is going with Geelong. I'm going to be going with Hawthorn here. I think that Sam Mitchell won't allow that first half performance to slide away. I think that the Hawks were very under pressure early against Port Adelaide, and they simply couldn't handle that sort of pressure. I think Sam Mitchell, as a professional coach as he is, won't let that sort of game slide. The fact that they brought that game back from absolutely nowhere, and midway through that last quarter, we were at that game, me and my brother, and we thought that Hawthorn could have stole it. So I think that Hawthorn really did keep on fighting. I really don't see another performance like that from them again. So I think that Hawthorn will respond from that poor performance in Gather Round, and I think they will respond. They get an 8-day break to review that performance. So I think Hawthorn are going to be one of the teams up there this year. They had to kind of have a down game. They've been up since basically early parts of last year. So they had to have a down game once in a while, and that was kind of, I think, their game where you sort of give them a bit of a mulligan, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going with the Hawks. But let's get into our full tips for round 6. My tips are Collingwood to beat Brisbane, North Melbourne to beat Carlton, Essendon to beat West Coast, Fremantle to beat Melbourne, Giants to beat the Crows, Suns to beat the Tigers, Swans to beat Port Adelaide, St Kilda to beat the Bulldogs, and Hawthorn to beat the Cats. And my brother's tips for round 6 are the Lions to beat Collingwood, North Melbourne to beat Carlton, Essendon to beat the West Coast Eagles, Fremantle to beat Melbourne, Adelaide to beat the Giants, Gold Coast to beat Richmond, Sydney to beat Port Adelaide, Bulldogs to beat St Kilda, and the Cats to beat Hawthorn. But let's get to our certainty picks. My brother had the first choice this week. He has gone with the Bulldogs to beat St Kilda. Of course, the Bulldogs losing to Brisbane last week. And I have gone Hawthorn to beat the Cats. Of course, Hawthorn losing to Port Adelaide last week. So those are our certainty picks. But let's get to the tipping ladder, of course, for the channel. Ethan Sports is still on top. Had a very good week with the 7 tips. So it does seem that most people got most of the tips this week, especially the favourites went out and won. Shout out to Leviticus for getting 8 tips. He was the only person who picked Port Adelaide and almost picked the whole card. He picked Sydney over Collingwood, so really unfortunate there, but he's in a pretty good spot right now. Hasn't used his joker, I believe, sitting on 33 tips, only 5 from top spot, who a lot of people up the top have used their certainty. Lucas M, unfortunately, has dropped right off the pace, only getting 4, going for a couple of roughies and Gather Round. Has dropped right off the pace, and I believe he's used his joker, so it's going to be really hard to see him coming back. At the moment, I sit in 11th spot. I sit with 32 tips at the moment, 6 tips off the top. I got 7 tips, so I'm pretty happy with that over the weekend. And my brother has dropped right off. He has skidded down all the way to 17th spot, so that's on the lower half of the tipping ladder. He got 5 over the weekend, went for a couple of roughies. Sydney was one of them, and got a couple of wrong ones. And both of us made the unfortunate decision to late change our tip from Geelong. Tom Stewart was a late out of that game. We went to the Crows. Halfway through that game, we were like, oh, great decision from both of us. And then all of a sudden, Crows turned their feet up. Cats came from the clouds and won the game, and we lost that tip. So unfortunate from both of us to miss that crucial tip in the end. Could have got us right up there in the end, but overall, not too bad from either of us. I'm pretty happy with where I am, and still holding my joker. I'm in a pretty good spot in my opinion. But Ethan Sports does lead the tipping comp for our channel at the moment. But guys, that is basically all we have for the preview to round 6. Thank you for listening and for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to check out our latest video essay about Carlton. If you haven't already, I'll leave that at the end screen for you. But that's all from me, guys, so we'll catch you all in the next one.